I was having a great conversation with a friend of mine, an associate, an acquaintance of mine, and he asked a couple good questions. One about David, one about Job, and it was how how do you explain that God gave David everything, called him a faithful follower, and yet with Job, he took everything and yet called him a faithful follower. And I tried to explain to him the differences between Job and David, and even though David did a horrid thing, when he was confronted, he confessed and he repented of that sin, those sins that he committed. And God forgave him and continued to be with him and continued to call him blessed. I should have told him also about Joseph. You remember Joseph of the Old Testament? He was a son of promise, son with promise. He had a coat of many colors. He was the favorite son out of 12. And his brothers, 10 of the other brothers, just didn't appreciate that. And so what they did is they lured him out and they threw him into a pit. Okay, Joseph had everything. His brothers threw him into a pit. And then they did, instead of rescuing him out of that pit after teaching him a lesson, they sold him into slavery. And then he was taken away out of his territory, out of his family territory. And then they sold him to an Egyptian leader by the name of Potiphar. And he worked his way up. He was second in command in Potiphar's house. And then something happened. Potiphar's wife wanted to seduce him. He said no. He took off running. He showed high integrity. He escaped at all costs. He still got thrown into prison because of the accusation. He had everything, and it was taken away. Was Joseph a faithful follower? Yes, I think he still could have. He could have complained. He could have whined. He could have moaned about his situation. And when he finally got out of that, prison, he rose to second in command of all of Egypt. And at the very end, when his brothers realized what happened, they begged him not to do anything to them. They even tried tricking him into making the promise of never harming them because of what they did. But he said something very interesting. This faithful follower, that he lost everything twice. He said to his brothers, "You did this to harm me, but God did this to save many." And sometimes a faithful follower has to go through hard times, my friend, because you don't know what God has planned for you. David, Job, Joseph all have very good messages for us today. Yes, God does these things. We don't always know his purpose, but we do always find out. Talk to you later.